Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good Sunday afternoon, and I just will take a few minutes of your time. I do apologize, last week was 30 minutes. I guess I got talking and lost track of time. I don't intend to go 30 minutes. I usually try to stay between 15 and 20, so I do apologize for that. But this one will be shorter this week. And this week we're talking about daughters. So we started off with wives, then we went to mothers, now we're going to talk about daughters. And next week I'll go on and tell you we're going to talk about sisters. So the theme, I think you all can kind of figure out, is different types of women in the Bible, different roles of women, I guess you would say, in the Bible. And I've only been picking the good ones. Now this week I've kind of leaned a little bit more towards the bad ones, but I've been trying to stay with the good, the positive, because right now I think everybody needs a little pick-me-up to get them through the week and some things to think about. So I've been kind of trying to focus on the good things. So have we ever stopped and thought about what kind of daughter we are? And so I want us to think about that. That is our starting point today, is what kind of daughter am I? And obviously I'm going to go in the spiritual aspect of a daughter. And that's the thing too that makes this devotional kind of unique, is we talked about wives the first week, and some of you all can say, well, I never was a wife. We talked about mothers last week. Some of you can say, I never was a mother. But every single person, every single female in watching this video, every single female period in the world can say they are a daughter. You have to be a daughter of someone. So that is what I want to talk about today. And as a daughter, we all have different stages in our life. And maybe you all can relate to a few of them. The first stage is a child, and maybe we were mischievous and needed corrective discipline. The second stage is the teenager stage. Maybe we were disrespectful and had to be reprimanded. Then you have the final stage, adults. Our turn to be caregivers to our parents. Like you, I can relate to all three stages. But how did we handle each stage in our life? How did we handle our children when they backtalked or when they misbehaved? How did we correct them? Did we do it in a loving way, in a teaching way? When we were teenagers, and I remember this clearly, the smart mouth stage. Of course, Elizabeth's only 5 and we're already hitting that stage. For me, it was a little bit later. But the smart mouth stage, how did we teach our daughters that we shouldn't have a smart mouth? And then when you get adult, it's our turn to take care of our parents. That will come one day. Someday, some people have already went through that phase. Some people like me are going through that phase. And some people are going to get to that phase. And then the roles are different. And in the book I was reading, I never thought of it this way, but it's almost like you're raising a child again in some instances. There comes a point when your parents cannot take care of themselves. They may get to the point where they can't feed themselves. They may get to the point where they need help with their personal hygiene. I think you all know where I'm going with this. And is that not what we do with our children? We teach them how to use the restroom. We feed them. We clothe them. We bathe them. And I think about that. And I didn't think about that growing up until I had to face it. But when there is going to come a time, and mostly, and I shouldn't say all the time, but I would probably say over 50% of the time, I would honestly probably say 90% of the time, it's the daughters that take on the role of taking care of their parents. I don't know why. I don't know if it's that nurturing aspect that we have, but that usually falls on the daughters. And we tease Elizabeth all the time that we've got to stay on her good side if we want somebody to take care of us. Because we all know right now Austin's not going to take care of us. And we do that jokingly. But it's our role as to train them, when they get older, that hopefully they will take care of us like we have. So I also want to think about too, what and how we do stage 1, which is when we're a child, and how we correct them. It will either help us or hurt us in stage 2 and 3. So if I am really harsh, and this is Paula's personal opinion. Paula doesn't have proof of this. Luckily, Elizabeth has not been my hard child. Austin is becoming my hard child. But if I am very, very harsh on Elizabeth and Austin right now when they're in the child phase, do I have any hope of gaining their respect, gaining their attention, getting them to listen to me when they're a teenager? It's going to be a whole lot harder. It's going to be a whole lot harder if I don't get a hold of them right now. So when they develop that smart mouth, or when they're going and doing things they shouldn't do, and they're in the teenage years and the peer pressure comes, I've got to already have that foundation with them. I've already got to have their trust and their respect. Then, like we said just a few minutes ago, when they become an adult, and at the end of our life, when they have to take care of us, are they going to be loving and nurturing? Or is it going to be payback? I hate to say that, but there are some instances there's payback. They don't want to take care of their parents, or they are pretty harsh to their parents. So they all build on each other. And of course, when we hit that third stage, we want our kids to like us, and we want them to take care of us. So, and I guarantee, well, I shouldn't say guarantee, I know everyone watching this is in a different stage. Some of you, like me, are in stage 1. Quite a few of you are probably in stage 2 with teenagers, and several of you, like I have said, have already surpassed stage 3. You've already been there and done that. So, but as we were going through all that, were we the daughter that God wants us to be? So I'm going to talk about 3 different daughters of the Bible, and we're going to start with Lot's daughters. We find this story in Genesis 19. We know that Lot was told by God to leave Sodom because of the wickedness that was going on there. Lot and his family were told to leave and not look back, and leave immediately. Not leave 3 days from now, not leave 6 months from now. An angel came and said, you need to leave. Well, we know the story. We all know that they left. The sons-in-law stayed, but the Lot and his wife and his daughters left. But what happened to Lot's wife? We all know. They had one simple command, and it was do not look back. And she couldn't do it. Lot's wife looked back, and immediately she turned into a pillar of salt. What strength, what courage, what fear did those daughters have that they didn't want to look back at their hometown? What faith they had that they believed that what God told them was going to happen. They didn't look back, so they were obedient. That goes back to Lot and his wife. They raised daughters to be obedient. So we need to be obedient like Lot's daughters. But did they stay obedient? You know the rest of the story? In Genesis, I'm going to read it to you, and then at the end we'll see if they became obedient or if they maintained their obedience. But Genesis 19, I'm going to read 30 through 38. Now Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she arose. The next day the firstborn said to the younger, behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also bore a son and called his name Benjamin. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. Are the daughters still good? They aren't, are they? They aren't the sweet, obedient, faithful daughters that we knew them to be. They had doubt that they would be able to carry on their family, their generations, you all know what I'm trying to say. They knew they weren't going to be able to have children, so they took it into their own hands. And now they believe God to keep them safe getting out of Sodom, and he did. Why they didn't believe that God let them have children somehow, some way, kind of reminds me of maybe it would have been another Mary situation. I don't know, but they didn't. And so they tricked their father. So not only we've kind of lost the respect, we've lost the obedience, we've lost everything, and we've turned bad. they all change. And we talked about this last week. Up to a certain point, we have control of our children. They become adults. They move out. They have their own family. They start making choices on their own, don't they? And these girls did not make the right choices. They got the first part right. They left when they were told to, but they really messed up the second part. And we all know people that are this way today, don't we? They're so sweet starting out, but then as their life goes on and as hard things come at them, they do more and more ungodly things. So are we like Lot's daughters? Are we just obedient for the beginning and then we turn to evil? It is very easy to turn away from good like Lot's daughters did, but we have to be diligent in doing what is right even when it is hard. Now we're going to move on to Donnas. And Donnas is a story that we don't really know all the facts. We know just enough to get us thinking. So we're going to go, and we find this again in Genesis. And this time we're going to go in Genesis 34. And that tells us a story about Donnas. And we know that Dinah is the daughter of Leah and Jacob. And we all know the story of Rachel and Jacob and Leah. We all know the line that went on with Jacob, or to Jacob, in order to get Rachel. So we know Jacob was promised Rachel. He had to work 7 years for her. He worked the 7 years. He didn't get Rachel. He got Leah. So he had to work another 7 years to get the girl who he really wanted, which was Rachel. So he did. So he worked 14 years in all, and he finally got Rachel. So in chapter 34, verse 1, we read that Dinah, their daughter, went out to see the women of the land. What do you think Dinah's intentions were? What was she seeking? The Bible does not tell us, but it does tell us in verse 2 that it did not turn out good for her. In verse 2, it says that Shechem saw her, seized her, and violated her. In verse 3, it says Shechem was strongly attracted to her. So this story quickly turned bad. Dinah's brothers heard what happened, and naturally, brothers want to take up for their sister. They wanted to defend her. They were ready to fight. They were ready to take this matter into their own hands. But while we can see the vile act that was committed by Shechem, we also need to think about if Dinah was innocent in this matter. And again, the Bible doesn't tell us. I'm not saying she was innocent. I'm not saying she wasn't innocent. I'm not saying she was asking for it. I just want us to think about it, to think about our actions. And I'm going to get there in a minute. We all know that regardless of what happened to Dinah, whether it was right or wrong, intended or not intended, she was somewhere she shouldn't have been. She was around people she shouldn't have been around. And we don't know, but she could have been dressed or acted in a way that was seeking attention. Shechem did say that she was very beautiful, that he was very attracted to her. It could have been natural beauty. We don't know. She may have done nothing wrong. I want to make that point clear because there's a lot of controversy. You'll see a lot of people saying, yes, she brought this on herself. She did it herself. And you'll see some people say, well, the Bible doesn't tell us that. And the Bible doesn't. So I'm not saying she brought it onto herself. But I want us to think about it. The three things, being around the wrong people, going to the wrong part of town, and possibly being dressed the wrong way, brought a very ugly outcome. And all those may or may not have sent these signals to Shechem. But I want to fast forward those three things to today's world. If we hang around people that aren't good for us, if we go places that we're not supposed to go, and we dress ways that are seeking attention, personally, to me, nothing good is going to come out of that. Now, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking for Paula, and Paula only, and I will say I'm speaking for Elizabeth. I thought growing up, I never really did get into the whole peer pressure thing. I don't know. I didn't. I don't know why. I was blessed and didn't have to go through that. But I also remember thinking, oh, I'm strong. I can go hang out with the druggies. I can hang out with the ones that are getting drunk all the time. It doesn't matter if I get in the car with someone who's drunk or someone who's been drinking or someone who's high. It's not going to hurt me. Now, I never actively hung around with those groups, but I knew those groups. We were in the common places together multiple times. And I started seeing myself change. And I had told myself all along, oh, I'll never act like them. I'll never think like them. I'll never dress like them. I'll never talk like them. Well, after a summer of hanging out with these people or being around them for 3 months, guess what? My attitude started changing. I started getting a smart mouth. My clothes started changing. I started going places that I wouldn't normally go. If you would have said, hey, Paula, let's go here, I never would have thought of going there before. So it does have an effect on you, the people you hang around and the places you go and the things you do. And that's my whole point, is as a daughter, are we sending good signals or bad signals? And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, I'm already married. I've been married 70 years. Nothing's going to change that. Let me tell you, go to Walmart. Have you been there lately? There's some people there that shouldn't be wearing the things they're wearing. There are people there that are talking the way they shouldn't be talking. There's wrong crowds. And I just said Walmart, you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere and see that. So it doesn't matter if you've been married 30, 40, 50 years. It doesn't matter that I'm married. It doesn't mean that I may not stray. It doesn't mean I may not be tempted to stray. We've got to watch ourselves and watch ourselves as Christian daughters that we don't do that. So, and we got to make sure that we don't want to be like Dinah and get in a situation we can't get out of. She went out to the town and she came back, and I would venture to say she never dreamed that would happen. I do not think she went out seeking that attention. But look what happened. We've got to be careful sometimes with the signals that we send off. So I'm going to end on a good note, and we're going to end with Pharaoh's daughter. And we read about Pharaoh's daughter in her story in Exodus 2. Pharaoh's daughter shows compassion, and that's what I want us to get away from her, get from this story. As we all know, Pharaoh had ordered that all the Hebrew baby boys be killed. So Moses was one of the ones that was supposed to be killed. So his mother put him in the river, put him in a basket, and went off to leave him, hoping that someone would spare his life. We all know that story. So we know that Pharaoh's daughter one day went down to the river. She saw the baby. She picked the baby up. She raised him as her own. And compassion. She went down knowing her father made this rule that all the baby boys were to be killed. She had compassion on this baby. Why Moses? Again, God's hand. That's all I can say. Maybe Moses' mother was the only one who thought to hide her baby in the water. I don't know. I'm sure as a mother, I would have been trying everything I could to hide him, get him out of that city, do something. But again, she found Moses' baby, and she could have left the baby crying. She could have not picked him up, knowing what her father, and knowing that she could have gotten so much trouble for taking this baby, but she didn't. She had compassion. She wanted to save this baby. We don't know what would have happened if Pharaoh's daughter wasn't one of compassion and didn't go pick baby Moses up. The whole story for sure would have been different. But Pharaoh's daughter also took a risk. If her father ever found out that she rescued a Hebrew boy, she'd have been in serious trouble. Are we willing to take a risk like Pharaoh's daughter in order to do good for someone? We need to be more like Pharaoh's daughter in that we have compassion for others. Are we raising our daughters to have compassion? Are we raising them to care for others, to be aware of others' feelings? Are we raising them to acknowledge the differences in people and not to compare people and not to have certain standards? Or are we raising our daughters that you're better than everybody and you get everything you want? Are we raising our daughters to be loving? Because there may be a time in our lives that we need love, that we need someone to have compassion. There's times in our lives that we need to show somebody compassion. Do our daughters know that? Do our daughters know what that means? So as I end, this week I want us to think about what kind of daughter are we? Are we like Lot's daughters and we start out good, but then we turn bad? Or are we like Dinah and possibly just sending all kinds of bad signals and just looking for trouble? Or are we like Pharaoh's daughter and we want to do good and we have compassion for others? Let us all strive to be the best daughters we can be this week. Again, thank you for listening. I appreciate your all's attention the past several months doing this. I appreciate all the positive feedback, all the comments. You all are too kind. Every week you all say some really sweet things, and I really appreciate that. I hope you all have a good week, and next week we will talk about sisters.